Iron Man 3 tells the story of Tony Stark after his experiences in New York, which took place in the movie The Avengers. As a result, Tony Stark is now suffering from both post-traumatic stress disorder and insomnia as a result of those attacks. In addition, his relationship with Pepper Potts is also a bit rocky at the moment. However, a new threat arises, a terrorist known as the Mandarin who is orchestrating a bunch of attacks, and it's up to Tony to stop him. The Good. I thought the action in this movie was really quite fantastic. I like some fun action, and I have not seen action this fun in quite a while. People who have seen the movie probably know which action I'm talking about. As a movie critic, I have a hard time shutting my brain off, and thus a lot of the times movies are very predictable for me. In the case of Iron Man 3, however, this was not the case. I was very happy not to know what turns this movie would take, and I couldn't help but think to myself, I'm sorry, it's cliché, but many times during the movie I just had to think to myself, what a twist! One of the elements of the Iron Man or Marvel movies that's always consistently awesome is that nearly every time Tony Stark appears, he's got some new crazy awesome invention that he's built. I don't know how the writers keep coming up with cool stuff for Tony to use, but by God, don't give up guys, because you are on a roll. Tony Stark in this movie is going through a little more hard time than he was in the past. And I'm glad to see that the writers are developing this kind of direction for him to take. And don't worry, it wouldn't be Tony Stark without banter, so you do still get to hear plenty of banter. The post-credit scene is hilarious. You gotta love Marvel for continuing to pump out these hilarious bonus scenes at the end of every movie. The iffy. The trailer was misleading in some ways because there were lines that were spoken in the trailer that were not used in the final cut of the movie. It's also a bit misleading on a few other accounts. I felt like this movie raised a lot of questions with a few of the things that happened in it. Some that could be addressed and answered fairly easily, and others that are very pressing questions. I think there's one event near the end of the movie that's going to raise the same question in a lot of people. However, if that question has a logical answer, I think it lies in the fact that they were trying to do some sort of character evolution with Tony Stark. The post-traumatic stress disorder type symptoms have a place in the movie because obviously after the experience Tony Stark had in New York, he's going to be dealing with some pretty crazy issues. However, it doesn't add up to much other than explain his insomnia because this PTSD is giving him really bad nightmares. The Bad. The Mandarin is not a good villain. He's built up in the trailer as this very intimidating personality. I'm not going to spoil this because for you to understand what I'm feeling, you have to go see the movie without anything spoiling what you're in for. I will say this though. Sometimes I watch movies and feel a little wrong about something. Sometimes I think about it later and I think, you know what, that did sort of make sense in the movie. I still don't like it that much, but it makes sense. Watching the Mandarin, by a certain point in the movie, I knew that something felt very wrong with him. And as I thought about it even more, it only made me more certain that I didn't like him as a villain. I don't like that they're working so hard to preserve the character of Tony Stark, the selling point of him, the point that will keep everyone coming back for that same personality, to the point where it seems like he doesn't ever seem to learn from his mistakes. Because in the first Iron Man, he was narcissistic, didn't take orders from nearly anybody, and mostly did his own thing. However, this has continuously gotten him into trouble. It does so in Iron Man 3 on a very grand scale, and by this point I think Tony Stark really needs to start learning some stuff, and hopefully he can retain some of that personality in future Marvel movies, but I do hope the writers do a little better in the future. Tony Stark is out of his Iron Man suit for much of the movie. This isn't something that I minded that much, but here's what I did mind. The fact that there were so many suits. It's times like this where I feel the phrase, less is more, needs to be taken into account. In the other movies, the suits are regarded with very much respect because they're this very unique and very powerful weapon. In Iron Man 3, there are about a dozen Iron Man suits flying around everywhere. Naturally, when you have the resources to make this many suits, there's also going to be more things that are capable of fighting against them. This aspect of having so many suits decreases the novelty, the value, and the usefulness of the Iron Man suit. For my complaints, I will say that the action involving the dozens of suits was pretty cool. It is true that the stuff that's bad in Iron Man 3 is pretty dang bad, but the good stuff actually does, for me, a good job of weighing them down. I had a lot of fun watching the movie, I liked it just fine, and I think fans of other Marvel movies will like it too. This is Detective Steve. Stay tuned for the next casual review.